everybody, and welcome back to another video of mine. In today's video we're going to be doing some weathering, and in this video we're going to be focusing on weathering passenger vehicles, so passenger carriages. Now the weathering that will be done on these is going to be relatively different to a freight car. Now obviously we've looked at weathering freight cars in previous videos, but we've never actually looked at weathering passenger cars. So this video I'm going to be weathering my Powerline S type carriage stock, and hopefully by the end of it we'll get a rather realistic result. Now with the previous weathering videos I've done them as time lapses. So with this one I'm actually going to be doing it as a sort of step by step, so no time lapses basically. So let me know in the comments guys, which do you prefer? Do you prefer the time lapse videos of the weathering, or do you prefer like the step by step? Let me know in the comments section below, that way I know which ones you guys like. So anyways, let's get started on these, as there's a fair bit to do. Alright, so before we do any weathering, we need to look at prototype photos. Now specifically, try find photos of the actual carriage or locomotive you are weathering. So in this case I've got two photos, so there's this one and then there's one out of shot. So what we notice in this photo here, first off we notice on this box here there is some sort of spillage, whether that be oil or fuel. We also notice that on the roof it's quite dark, so there's a bit of grey dirt on there. Also note how the underframes have a light amount of grime. They are not heavily weathered. The sides are cleaned, as this is a passenger vehicle. Passenger vehicles were always kept relatively clean, as passengers expected comfort and reliability. They don't want to be sitting in a dirty carriage. So things like this you need to note down, that way you know what it is that you're working with. Now if you look at the other photo that I've got, zoom you in, you can see on this photo here the roof is a little bit more dirty than the previous one, but the sides are still cleaned. The underframe has a small amount of grime on it, but it is not filthy. So if you're going to take anything out of this clip, it's the word clean. Passenger cars were kept clean. If you spray them in filth, it looks like no one cared about them, and no one wants to be sitting in a dirty passenger carriage. So passenger carriages were always kept relatively clean. So that's what I'm going to try to achieve with this with these models. So anyways, enough waffling, and let's get started on the weathering. Alright, so starting off, what we need to do is we need to mask up these sides here. That way we keep them clean, because as you saw in those prototype photos, the sides were clean. So what you need, a bit of masking tape, and what we're going to do is we're just going to lay the carriage on its side. Now you'll also note that I'm laying it on a foam cradle, that way I don't get the paintwork scratched, as these models are not particularly cheap. So I'm going to try keep the paint job in relatively good condition as I can. That'll be enough. And then I'll just cut out the piece that I want. And then what we're going to do is we're going to lay it over the side like that. Now I still want a little bit of orange showing down below here, as you can see. So that way that area is a little bit dirty. So that's that corner done. And then what we'll do is we'll flip you over. Do the same thing. Now we are going to do a little bit of treatment around the doors, but what we'll do is we'll do all the airbrushing first and then take off the masking tape obviously, and then we'll do some treatment around the doors. Right, so this model is now ready to go for the airbrushing stage. Now I've got 2 more to do, so I'll do those off camera and then I'll put you back on when they're done. Okay, so now we've got the tape on. First thing we need to do before we start adding paint is we need to take a soft bristle brush like this and just give the models a dust, get rid of any dust and dirt that may be around on the roof, especially around detail like this. Make sure you use a soft brush, that way it doesn't damage any details. And that will do for this one. So what you can also do is you can go in on the under frame and just give that a bit of a tickle, get rid of any dust there as well. Try not to break any parts. So yeah, that'll do for the model. So I'll do the rest of them off camera and then we'll get on with it. Alright, so I've now mixed up the paint and as you can see I've got the airbrush out and the gloves on. So roofs are all clean now, so they're free from any dust and contaminants. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the underframe. So I've just mixed up some Humbrol number 29 dark earth in this cup here. No idea how well you can see that, but that's a nice airbrush mix. So what we'll do is we'll basically we'll do a test spray just on the bottom of the wood here. So I think I should take the carriage off, that way I don't get paint on that. So we're going to do a test spray on here, just to make sure it's running well, the paint's flowing good. So I'll turn the airbrush on. Now with a bit of air going through, we'll hook our thingo up. The airbrush may be a little loud. Yep, looks about right. So what we'll do is we'll put the carriage back on the stand here. Now it's going to start spraying the underframe. Flip this around. Basically we're just going to repeat the same thing on this side as well. Alright, there we go. So we got a nice layer of grime on the bogies and underframe. So what we'll do is we'll let this dry, and I'll do the same to the rest of them, and then we'll get on with the roof. Alright, so all the airbrushing to the chassis is now done. Now, I don't know how well the camera picks this up, but if I just shine a light, as you can see, chassis's got a nice layer of grime on it. And same for the other two. So what we're now going to do is we're now going to be focusing on the roof of the model. So we're going to apply a darkish sort of grey to that, and we're going to then apply some weathering powders to finish it off. Now, I may also apply some weathering powders to the chassis. I'm not sure about that at this stage, but we'll see how things go with there. So anyways, we're going to mix up our paint, and then I'll get a start on weathering the roof. Alright, so I've now mixed up the grey paint that we're going to use for the roof. Now, it's a little bit light for my liking, but what we're going to do is we're going to go in with a bit of black weathering powders, just to sort of darken it down a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring our carriage over here like this, and then of course we need to hook up our airbrush. Now the airbrush has all been cleaned, so I got rid of the excess enamel paint. Make sure that's firmly on there. It is all out, so I'm just going to test spray. There we go. Now I'm just going lightly with this. Moving up the layers. So that's pretty much how much I want to do. So what I'll do is I'll do the same thing to the rest of them, and then I'll put it back on. Alright, so with all the airbrushing work done, we can now focus on the brush effects. So first off, I'm going to actually paint these wheels. So I'm going to paint the faces with this Tamiya XF1 NATO brown. This is a fantastic colour to use for painting the wheels on your rolling stock. So I'm just going to put a little bit on the brush here. I'm just going to give the wheel a coat of that. As you can see, we've got nice weathered wheels, so we'll do the same to the other side here. Let's take a bit of paint off this one, because that's a bit too thick. There we go. So got nicely painted wheels. So what I'll do is I'll do the rest of them and put you back on. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do some brush effects to the chassis. So on the chassis there's various areas which could have a black wash. So for example, the springs on the bogies and other various sort of details on the bogies and underframe chassis and all that. So I got myself a black wash. Now this is just some Tamiya XF1 flat black, which I've actually mixed up into a wash. So get this opened. So what we're going to do is we're going to just move this to the side here. Move those wheels out of the way. Dip our brush in. Apply bits of the bogey there. Please excuse the noise in the background, that's just the garage door. Alright, so now we're going to do the final part of the weathering, and that is to do some weathering powders to the roof. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to put some powders on my brush, tab it along like that, and then just streak it across like that. So I'm going to do a time lapse of that, so you'll see how I do that. Alright, so a bit of time later and they're complete. So I am so happy with how these turned out. Now the weathering on the roof is a little bit heavier than the photos that I showed earlier. Now the photos that I showed earlier, those were probably taken around the early 80s, so around 84, 85. I'm modeling 88 to 90, so the roofs on these would have been a little bit heavier, so hence that's why I made them a little bit heavier, as you can see. Now, things I did off camera was obviously matte varnish them. I took the tape off and cleaned the windows on the ends. Now, when I took the tape off the sides, what happened was it left a very noticeable tape line, so where the paint had met the tape. So simply using a cotton bud and a bit of thinners, I was able to get rid of that. So these just look so nice now. So I'm very happy with them. So anyways, as I said at the start of the video, I did this video as a step-by-step. Now please let me know if you prefer the step-by-step or the time-lapse. That way I know what to do in the future for weathering videos. So anyways, that will be it for today's video. Hope you all enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully this has inspired you to have a go. I'll leave links to all the products that I used in the description below. So anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and of course, I'll see you all in my next video. Take care, stay safe,